everyone, and welcome to the Board of County Commission meeting here in Seminole County. The date is Tuesday, November 12th, 2024. It's approximately 9:30 a.m. I would ask that you please take a moment and silence your cell phones, any other electronic equipment you have, whether that be iPads or other computer systems or Game Boys or whatever you may have brought into chambers to keep yourself occupied with our craziness. Now I just dated myself, right? Game Boy. Before we get started, I'd like to take a moment and congratulate 3 of our commissioners who have cleared and been reelected this year to the Board of County Commission, Commissioner Constantine, Commissioner DeLaurie, and Commissioner Herr. Congratulations on your election. We're going to move to our invocation, and our invocation is going to be done by Pastor Bob Melhorn from the Integrity Church, and then we're going to ask Mr. John Slott to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pastor?
Good morning, everyone. Let's pray. Our Holy One, we thank you for this glorious day, and we thank you for seeing us through what has been an anxious season of apprehension with all the attention given to the elections. And now, Father, we're ready to move forward. We congratulate those who serve, who continue to serve, and we pray your continued guidance and wisdom for all of them. We're also mindful, Lord, that there is a greater election, that is your election of all of us to discern the purpose of our lives, to spend our energy and time serving you in the place you have put us and the time you have allotted to us. Give us wisdom to live out our days in a way that is pleasing to you. Holy One, it feels to us sometimes like the whole world wants to move to Central Florida, and this is a great opportunity, new people, new ideas, new energy for us, but also a great challenge, concerns about space, concerns about the environment, concerns about infrastructure. And so, Father, give us the wisdom to balance competing concerns. I ask your blessing today, Lord, upon the commissioners and their families. Bless all the employees of Seminole County, and give your blessing upon all those who call Seminole County their home. I pray in Jesus' strong name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Pastor, and thank you, Mr. Slott, for being here to lead us in the pledge. Next item up will be our awards and presentations, and this proclamation is for our Veteran of the Month, and this will be read by Commissioner Andrea Herr. Commissioner?
Thank you, Chairman. It is my honor to read the following proclamation of the Seminole County Board of County Commissioners recognizing United States Marine Corps Corporal Ronald DeBasto for his outstanding service to the United States and to Seminole County. Whereas the brave men and women of our Army, Navy, Marines, Air Force, Coast Guard, and Space Force demonstrate a resolute spirit and unmatched selflessness, reminding us there are few things more American than giving of ourselves to make a difference in the lives of others. And whereas throughout our country's history, generations of service members have answered the call to leave their families, their jobs, and put their futures and even their lives on the line to valiantly defend our nation. And whereas for many service members, the sacrifice has ended in permanent injury or death, yet their spirit remains in the continued preservation of our freedoms and the promise of liberty. And whereas there are more than 30,000 living veterans in Seminole County who served our nation in times of peace and war. Through their service, they kept America strong. And whereas Corporal Ronald DeBasto enlisted in the United States Marine Corps in September 1965 and served honorably until January 1970. He served in the Republic of Vietnam from July 1967 to October 1968. He received the National Defense Service Medal, Good Conduct Medal, Vietnam Service Medal with 1 star, M14 Rifle Sharpshooter Badge, Vietnam Campaign Medal, and the Combat Action Ribbon. And whereas Corporal Ronald DeVasto was raised in Boynton Beach, Florida, and returned to Florida upon his discharge from the Marine Corps. He moved to Winter Park in 1970 and worked for Avis Rent-A-Car. And whereas Corporal Ronald DeVasto then used his VA education bill to complete his doctorate in clinical hypnotherapy. He opened and operated a hypnosis medical practice in Winter Park for 35 years, serving as a board member from 1994 to 2002 on the International Board for Regression Therapy and being the founder of the Hypnotic Research Society. He has traveled the United States and Canada, providing training to medical professionals in regressive therapy. And whereas Corporal Ronald DeVasto loves to fish and scuba dive, he earned his captain's license from the United States Coast Guard in 2008. He was also awarded the Quilt of Honor and is a generous 46-gallon whole blood and platelet donor. And whereas Corporal Ronald DeVasto has been a life member of the Marine Corps League from 1971 and rejoined in 2019. He is also a member of the 1st Marine Division Association and is a member of the Military Order of the Devil Dogs. And whereas Corporal Ronald DeVasto has brought great credit and distinction upon himself, the United States of America, the United States Marine Corps, and Seminole County. Now therefore, be it proclaimed that we, the Board of County Commissioners of Seminole County, Florida, express our gratitude, admiration, and respect for Corporal Ronald DeVasto for his outstanding service to the United States Marine Corps and the residents of Seminole County. Be it further proclaimed that this proclamation is presented to Corporal Ronald DeVasto along with our sincere congratulations and recognition as Seminole County's Veteran of the Month, adopted this 12th day of November 2024.
Second.
Motion and second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed, like sign. Seeing none, carries unanimous. Congratulations and thank you.
Corporal, welcome home.
If you'll join us on the floor for a photograph and presentation, sir. All right. Thank you very much, Corporal, for being here today. I did ask him to maybe he might want to stick around and perform some hypnosis on some of us before this day is over. Might be beneficial. With that said, we're going to now move to our consent agenda, and I will go to the county manager. Is there anything, Mr. County Manager, that you are changing on the consent agenda?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioner. Just two items. There is an addition, 14A, which would be under fire, and that is the Unit B contract that you all have been briefed on, and as well as Item number 21, this is the Links funding agreement. I'd like to move that to after the Links presentation this morning, and you all can take that up at that time.
Okay, is everyone good with that on the board? Okay,
And that's all the changes, Mr. Chairman.
great. All right, County Attorney, Ms. Kate Latour, would you read into the record the rules for public participation, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Florida law provides that members of the public shall be given a reasonable opportunity to be heard on propositions before the Board of County Commissioners, except when the board is acting on emergency or ministerial matters or conducting a meeting exempt from the requirements of the Sunshine Law. Individuals shall be permitted 3 minutes each for public comment or 6 minutes when the individual is an official representative of a formal association or group. The chairman may modify the maximum time for public comment at his sole discretion when appropriate. Public comments on quasi-judicial or other public hearing items will occur during the board's consideration of those items this afternoon. Public comments on pending procurement matters or on non-agenda items shall not be permitted at this time. Members of the public desiring to make public comment must fill out a speaker form and present the form to staff. Forms are available in the lobby. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Ms. Latour. Any commissioner desire to pull any other items from the consent agenda before we move forward? Commissioner Lockhart.
I'd like to pull 20 and 27.
20 and 27 for Commissioner Lockhart. Any other commissioners desire to pull any at this time? So note 20 and 27. Okay, we will go to public comment. Do we have any speakers here this morning wish to speak on any of these items? And if so, which item?
Yes, sir. We have two. We have Ryan Charlson to speak on item 29 and Daryl Carter to speak on item 20.
Okay, if you two individuals would come up, please. When you get to the podium, state your name and address for the record. You will have 3 minutes. We would ask that you keep it specifically to the topic in which you desire to speak on and identify which item that is, please.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We have microphones everywhere.
There's so many microphones, I don't know where to go. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, commissioners and the audience. My name is Ryan Charlson. I am counsel for Benchmark Construction. I'm here to speak on agenda item number 29, which is the approval of the unilateral termination for cause of Benchmark Construction Company, Inc. Benchmark opposes the termination, and we're here to state that publicly. We believe a better approach would be to work with the county in order to develop a remedial plan that would be mutually beneficial to the county and to Benchmark. This will save countless money in attorney's fees and costs for both the county and Benchmark. A unilateral termination of Benchmark will undoubtedly result in a lawsuit filed by Benchmark against the county. The county may have counterclaims against Benchmark. It's going to end up in a dispute. And this dispute is going to go on for a number of years, based on my experience. I'm board certified in construction law by the Florida Bar. I've been doing this for a long time. And these lawsuits tend to evolve as the time goes on. Benchmark has a surety that's also involved, and they're going to have defenses and are going to oppose. I don't want to speak for the surety because I don't represent them, but it seems like they're going to oppose the termination as well. And I think that if we collaborate and put our heads together, we should be able to come up with a solution here. For example, if you look at the dates on the proposed unilateral termination, it talks about how things with this project started, for lack of a better term, going off the rails in May, June. We're in November. Benchmark hasn't been allowed on the project to conduct any work. They could be done by now. If you terminate Benchmark, you're going to have to go through a whole new procurement process. That'll take forever. This project is the talk of the town, so it's going to be tough to find people. I think you should reconsider the termination of Benchmark. And speaking for Benchmark, I can tell you that we're ready, willing, and able to continue with the project. And I've been saying that in my meeting with county attorneys, both county attorneys in-house and outside counsel. And they're well aware of that. But I do appreciate the time this morning to speak with you directly. I think you should reconsider this agenda item and save the taxpayers of Seminole County a lot of money and everyone a lot of heartache. I'd also like to point out that there are a couple things in the unilateral termination that are inaccurate. Obviously, Benchmark disputes deficiencies with its work, but there are certain parts in here where it discusses Benchmark being provided with an opportunity to provide a remedial plan, and that never happened. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. We appreciate it. Next, please.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. My name is Darrell Carter with Maury Carter & Associates. I filled out the speaker card in hopes that I wouldn't have to speak this morning. It was just in the event that there were questions that come up. I'm here along with Hal Cantor and several of my colleagues on behalf of WB Equestrian. It's agenda item number 20. So if there are any questions that come up, I don't want to test your patience with a long talk. So we're here if you need us, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. All right, any other public comments or speaker forums?
No, sir.
Okay, we will close public comment and go to board action.
Mr. Chairman?
Commissioner Constantine?
Thank you. Could I, before I make a motion or anyone makes a motion, can I ask our county manager to address 29, please?
Yeah, you can.
Only in the sense, not only in the sense of, did we go through all the proper
Well,
procedures?
I want to caution everyone, this is not the venue to litigate this item, number one.
I'm not trying to.
Number two, hopefully you all have all been briefed for numerous times, multiple times by multiple staff members, and where this stands. So I would just, with caution, if you can help Commissioner Constantine understand that, and we'll try to go.
Yeah, actually, I'll ask our Assistant County Manager, Christian Swinson, who has been leading this project, briefly.
Thank you, Darren. Christian Swinson, Assistant County Manager. Yes, I heard the comments from Benchmark's counsel. Obviously, we disagree with a number of them. We have been working with them for a number of months. We did not arrive at this decision lightly. You may recall it was previously agendized. There was a meeting prior to that where Benchmark requested that we remove it from the agenda and attempt to work with them, which we did. We have been unsuccessful at this point, and that is why it's back on the agenda.
And thank you, that's all I wanted to know, to put that on the public record. Thank you very much. And with that, oh, I'm sorry.
Commissioner Lockhart?
Well, I'll just say, as the district commissioner whose office has been working hand in hand with the community, if they were here, they would want to vote themselves.
Any other comments from the commission? Seeing none, I will look again for board action.
And with that, Mr. Chairman, I will move the approval of the constitutional officers' consent agenda 2 through 4 and the county manager's consent agenda 5 through 33, including 14A, with the exceptions of 20, 21, and 27.
Second.
Motion is second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Seeing none, passes unanimously. We have Commissioner Lockhart wanted to pull item 20. Commissioner?
Thank you so much. And this is in Commissioner Herr's district, and so I probably already got the message that I needed to have, knowing that she was not the one that pulled this from the agenda. But I just feel like the last conversation we had about this publicly, there were a lot of questions and many concerns about the impact on the community and the eventual use of the property and the traffic that could possibly stem from that, and what is the highest and best use for the county if the county were to take control of it. I don't see a fiscal impact statement along with this item. Anytime we buy property, and we seem to do it, like golf courses occasionally, we buy it and there is a long-term consequence financially. There are always benefits, but there are also financial consequences when we purchase property. I don't see anything about that in this item that shows that that has been contemplated. We have a process in place via Seminole Forever for prioritizing property that's going to be purchased and put either in conservation or for some other use, whether it be green infrastructure or what have you. We're finally close to the end of having that committee that we've established do that work. So I'm just wanting to make sure that there is discussion and it's been brought off of the consent agenda because the last public conversation about this had so many questions and concerns. Someone from the public might look back and wonder, well, gosh, how did that go from lots of concerns to no discussion at all and a vote? So that's my intention for bringing it forward.
It's my understanding, please correct me if I'm wrong, there has been interaction with the public with questions that have been asked. Are you satisfied that that has sufficiently occurred?
Yes, in fact, if you remember when Mr. Durr did his Parks Master Plan update, we did talk about this property, about doing the due diligence and bringing this property back to the board. Now, we have not had community meetings with the area, so that is something that if you'd like us, we could definitely do that as one of our next steps. But this is following up with the master plan presentation that we had done last summer.
Yeah, I think the anticipation would be as you move forward with what is going to take place over there, that you would have community meetings, and of course Orange Boulevard improvements are taking place, which will help address some of those traffic concerns. But this is...
And also, go ahead.
Commissioner Herr.
So I think the difference between the last time we talked about this in a fairly open public meeting and this time is that the thought process has changed. First of all, the opportunity to purchase the property is now. It's either going to be sold to us or sold to development, one of the two. So land goes for sale when land goes for sale. What I was vehemently opposed to was, and I'm not going to remember the number, but I'm going to use the word bajillion, so everyone knows it's not the right number, but a bajillion soccer fields going into that area so that we could host worldwide soccer tournaments that would absolutely drive a traffic pattern that the infrastructure cannot support. What this is doing is securing the land for future consideration. I will continue to oppose that, but the land being, I don't necessarily know that it's going to be put into preservation, but put into use for county purposes in some form or fashion that allows it to still be drainable, which is a big deal out there, as we all know from the recent hurricanes, and used to some benefit of the citizens that does not drive a cost structure for the county that is beyond our ability to support. All that to be determined, which is why I'm supporting the issue.
Any other comments? Commissioner Constantine.
I would just tend to, and I don't tend to agree, but in talking to the staff and everything, this has the opportunity to support traffic improvements as well as drainage improvements, and also the fact that, reduce the, if you will, stress on redevelopment of that property. And as Commissioner said, you either buy it now or you buy it later, or somebody else is going to buy it. And so I'm supportive of this. I don't think anybody really knows what the future is going to be for this property specifically. I do know that we have seen some, future plans, but I do know that two of the things that need to be done is with cooperation with traffic improvement and drainage, and whatever we do. So I'm supportive of this.
Commissioner Delary.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would agree with all the comments we're having here today. There is, I believe, a 120-day period.
Yes.
That we have to look at this, to look for and discover, continual discovery of any additional items. But yes, there is stormwater issues in this area. We've all heard of them, as well as traffic and transportation issues. And by doing this, it will allow us to address that holistically. And I think we should be very thankful that the property owner is willing to work with us. And we will move forward to figure out what those issues are. But I would also agree with Commissioner Herr that, we're not trying to build a regional complex out there. We're trying to figure out what fits with the community. And I agree, Mr. Chairman, that it's important that we bring the community in to actually hear from them as well and to make sure their concerns are addressed. So,
Very well. I'll move the motion to approve item number 20.
Second.
Motion is second. All those in favor?
Does the district commissioner not want to make the motion for
That's
her
okay.
own?
Go ahead.
I'll move to approve item number 20.
Who would
wanna
like to
second
second it? No, y'all go right ahead.
Second.
All those in favor?
Why-
Aye.
Under discussion.
Oh.
Normally, we
Further
do
discussion.
motion, second, discussion. What I would just like to put out there is that we have a process in place. We have invested a lot of time, money, and effort, and citizen volunteers for purchasing properties like this. We need to be mindful of the fact that every time somebody wants to sell a piece of property, whether it's something like this or golf courses or what have you, we do have other pieces of property in this county that are still waiting for their ultimate, I'm just going to throw out Rosenwald. We've had that property for 6 years. We have not done what we said we were going to do. We have other underserved communities in this county that are waiting for open space and things to be purchased for the benefit of those communities. And yet somehow we, and I'm not saying this is a bad decision, but I'm going to get it on the record that we continually, quickly are able to come up with 10 million here and 9 million there for golf courses and properties like this, and yet we struggle to find money to do projects in underserved communities. So I would just like to make sure that that's on the record.
Anyone else? Commissioner Herr?
I would just point out that Midway has a significant amount of work being done, that we've put $1 million into parks out there. There is a lot of things happening at the same time. It's not just like the rest of the world, it's not either or. It's happening simultaneously. I think the thing that I would like is for, not right this minute, we have a long agenda in front of us, but we probably need some clarification with regard to why this would fall outside of a Seminole Forever and when things fall in it and out of it, because I see a distinct difference, but clearly, we're not clear on that. I could be 100% wrong. Is that every purchase of land goes through Seminole Forever? That wasn't what I thought the intention was. So we probably need some clarification there as well, particularly for our citizens to understand.
And we are going to get an update, Mr. Chairman and members, today about based upon the criteria that was placed in the ordinance. I think that the ARC committee has come up with some suggestions, so we're going to see that today. So that was, obviously a timely suggestion. But remember, this, because of the drainage, because of the transportation, is a sales tax infrastructure project,
That's right.
not a general revenue project.
That's correct. Okay, let's come on down the line, make sure nobody else has any additional to say. Commissioner Lockhart, anything additional? Commissioner
I'd
Lockhart?
like to call the question, Mr.
Commissioner Herr? I would just point out, since we're talking about districts and issues, is that my district could use a community center, and I have not seen anything move forward in the Geneva, the portions of Sanford, for any type of community center on the east side of this county. A lot of my constituents would love to have that, but I'm also patient enough to wait due turn to prioritize certain things and how things can move forward. So just want to make sure that my constituents understand that I am rooting for them and I am trying to advocate for them, but we have to prioritize things as they come forward. With that said, we'll call the question. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed, like sign. Seeing none, passes unanimous. Item 27, Commissioner Lockhart.
So I wanted to add on this item, and I know there was additional information that was sent from the county attorney's office, but I wanted to add additional clarity in the form of a motion, which I'm hopeful that you all received the language so that this won't be something that you're hearing for the first time. But as the current representative on the Central Florida Commuter Rail Commission, I just felt more comfortable adding a little more context and another layer to the intent, at least how I intend to move forward in this role, and if it becomes somebody else, that this would apply to them as well. And so in the conversation of representing the Board of County Commissioners on the Central Florida Commuter Rail Commission, I would like to make a motion that states the following, that the Seminole County Central Florida Commuter Rail Commission representative be able to vote on matters such as agreements and policies in furtherance of the transition from FDOT to the CFCRC, consistent with the governing agreements as amended, in coordination with the county manager, and thereafter being ratified by the Seminole County BCC. So that whoever is on that board is not making decisions and votes, and then you not ever hearing about it or knowing about it, but the county manager would be involved, and then those items would come back to you for ratification, acknowledgement, if you will.
Second.
Can I ask for clarification?
Please, Commissioner Delory.
It'd be for the county attorney. When we're talking about large sums of money, that would be approving contracts based on large sums of money that would be required through Sunrail that this board would be obligated for?
Yes, Commissioner, but it wouldn't be outside the scope of the governing documents that you've already approved. If anything were to, the way that the motion was phrased is that the authority is being given to the CFCRC rep to approve agreements and documents consistent with the governing documents that are in place. If anything were to go beyond the scope of those documents, it would be my legal opinion that they would have to come back to the board before the CFCRC rep could approve those documents.
So that they would also be having the ability to commit this board for future dollars that are going to be required that this board should be looking at, because there are different votes on that commission. It's either things that we pass simple majority, supermajority, or unanimous. And that's when there's issues that we're talking about dollars, that's going to be large numbers, that this board should be weighing in so that we understand what commitments we're making in the future, because it could be in the millions of dollars worth.
Correct. We're at a place right now in the transition where there is a lot of agreements being assigned and entered into in order to facilitate the transition.
I understand
And
that.
so the timing has become an issue with bringing everything on a board agenda with the advance publication of the agenda and at this time of year, so
That part doesn't
few
bother me.
meetings.
What I'm concerned about is committing this county to large sums of money as we move forward that this board may have issues with.
And the intent of this motion is not to allow the representative on the CFCRC to commit the board beyond what it's already committed to financially.
Okay. As long as we're not agreeing to additional dollars that this board has agreed to.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, just as an example, one of the items that is needing to be voted on is whether or not the funding partners will utilize QuickBooks for accounting software at $99 a month. Like, that's the kind of thing that has to be voted on, that we're saying I would be allowed to go ahead and vote for that and then come back and let you all know there was a vote to utilize QuickBooks. These are not high dollar, high value.
I understand that. I guess
Okay.
for my clarification, as long as it doesn't go beyond the dollar figures that we've agreed to in our budget, in our annual budget here, whoever is sitting up here, that's all I'm concerned about.
I think the key
Covered
here,
with the consultation with the county manager.
I think the key here is consistent with the operating plan.
Yep.
And that clearly dictates to me when I review it. So I don't have a problem with this. So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed, like sign. Seeing none, carries unanimously. All right, that takes care of our consent agenda. Next type,
Can I clarify one thing, please? The motion that Commissioner Lockhart made was for the board to grant her the authority to do these votes. I don't think there needs to be a separate vote on item number 27.
okay.
Move to approve item 27.
Second. Just
Further discussion?
just clarification, that was an amendment to the motion. She made it as an amendment to 27.
27.
I apologize. I didn't realize it was an amendment.
She made it as an amendment to the 27.
I thought it was a standalone motion, Commissioner.
No.
No.
In discussing 27, what I was adding to it was this language.
Okay, my
that
mistake, my
further
mistake.
clarified. That was my intent. If it didn't come across that way, I apologize.
I just wanted to make sure that everybody.
Thank you. No, I took it differently.
Do you want to restate it for the record?
I can.
Just to make sure it's clear?
Sure.
As an amendment?
Sure. Motion to authorize Seminole County CFCRC representative to vote on matters such as agreements and policies in furtherance of the transition from FDOT to the CFCRC, consistent with the governing agreements as amended, in coordination with the county manager, and thereafter ratified by the Seminole County Board of County Commissioners.
As an amendment to item 27 as stated. So that's how it sounded like a separate motion.
Okay.
Do you see what I'm saying?
So okay, I'll bookend it. I predicated it with this is an amendment to 27, and I'll bookend it on the back end with as it was intended to be further defining item 27. You got it?
It's an amendment.
Yeah. It's okay.
I need a second.
I already seconded it.
Okay, I didn't hear you down there. There was too much little chatter going on down there. Motion second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Carries unanimous. Madam County Attorney, we are okay?
Yes, I didn't mean to overcomplicate it.
No,
My
no, no,
apologies.
no, no, no.
We do that very well on our
No,
own.
we're off to a good kick this morning. We'll keep up to it. So next up is our regular agenda items. This will be a reduction of lien request. Alexis, good morning.
Good morning. For the record, my name is Alexis Brignoni. I am clerk to the Code Board. I am presenting item number 34, which is a request from applicant U.S. Bank Trust TR, LSF9 Master Participation Trust, represented by broker Joyce Sanders, for a reduction of the code enforcement lien from the total of $86,500 to $1,000. The property is located at 1781 Carlton Street, Longwood. Parcel ID 01-21-29-50K-250B-0020 for case number 1933 CESM. In summary, the violation was originally observed on October 19, 2017 by the inspector concerning the violation of Seminole County Code, Chapter 40, Appendix A, Section 105.1, construction without the required permits, specifically the installation of a privacy fence. The original respondent at the time was notified with a notice of violation. However, the property foreclosed and the bank became the new owner, thus receiving their own notice of violation before the case was brought to the Code Enforcement Board office. This matter indeed brought to the special magistrate on March 14th, 2019, and a findings of fact, conclusion of law and order was ordered and concluded the respondent be in compliance no later than May 9th, 2019, or a fine of $50 per day would be imposed for each day the violation continues or is repeated. The respondent did not comply with the order given by the special magistrate, and an order was imposed as of July 11th, 2019, finding the respondent not in compliance with a recorded lien of $3,150 to continue to accrue at a rate of $50 per day until the violation is remedied. This order was sent to be recorded in official records, book 9399, pages 1035-1036. On February 5th, 2024, the permits were reflected in our systems as being obtained, and an affidavit of compliance was sent to the respondent with the total accrued lien amount. The applicant's U.S. Bank Trust TR LSF9 Master Participation Trust, represented by broker Joyce Sanders, is requesting the Board of County Commissioners approve a reduction of the Code Enforcement Board lien in the amount of $86,500 to $1,000, as the property is now in compliance for case number 1933 CESM on the property located at 1781 Carlton Street, Longwood, parcel ID 01212950C-250B-0020, and authorize the county manager to execute a satisfaction and release of code enforcement lien upon receipt of the appropriate payment from the applicant. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Ms. Alexis. Any questions for staff? Seeing none, is the applicant here and wish to make any statement to the board? Please, your name and address for the record, please.
Joyce Sanders, Florida Real Estate Properties. I live in Longwood, Florida, 2484 West State Road, 434. I am the listing agent for the property. I was assigned the property in April of -- I've been trying to get this issue resolved. Initially, when I tried to I don't know what happened prior to my taking over the property. It seems that the property was in a property management program with U.S. Banks, Hudson Homes, and it was transferred to the sale division, which is when I became assigned to the property in April of '23. I've been trying to get it resolved since then. One of the initial issues we had was that the fence was erected, but there are 2 lots, and Seminole County asked us to combine the lots so that we could get a better understanding of the fences and the locations and who they belong to. After I got the lots combined, then they came out for an inspection for the fence. It was determined that, because there's a pool on the property, that was a major concern, I'm assuming, that the fence was not in the right spot and there had not been a permit. After that, the neighbors on either side erected fences, so we were able to determine that the fence that was of concern was not ours. Then they wanted latches put on the fences, and the latches were too low. I met the contractors out there several times. They just could not get it right for some reason. The latch wasn't high enough, and the latch had to become self-closing. Again, because of the pool, ultimately, we erected a pool screen fence. I'm here to see if we can get this fine reduced. I don't know what happened prior to my taking over, but we're in a situation now where the things are escalating and it's absorbent.
Thank you. Okay. Anyone else here from the public to speak on this matter?
No, sir.
Seeing none, we'll close any public input. Commissioner Constantine, this is your district.
Well, it seems that I thank you very much that you got involved in 2023, but this is an issue that's been going on from 2017. And from 2019, I believe also I heard that, it has been accruing and went to code magistrate. I also heard in the conversation and read that that they were sent to the bank information as well as to the management company, and neither responded. And again, thank you very much for you responding in 23 or whenever this all got solved. But it seems that there's an ongoing problem with once banks get foreclosed and get a hold of property, that they kind of ignore it until they have to do something and they want to sell it. I'm just doing a little math here. I will, the lien on $86,500 does seem a little exorbitant for a fence concern, but still I'll take that you still have responsibility at least of 20%, and therefore I'm going to 20% of 86.5 is 16,850 plus the 500 administration, that's 17,350, and therefore that will be my motion that we reduce it to 17,350.
Motion second. Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed, like sign. Carries unanimous. Thank you all very much. Next, we're going to move into our work session portion of the program. First up will be item 35, which is the Links Future Planning. This is Mr. Tim Jex, along with Christian Swenson and James Boyle, and some folks from Links will all be presenting.
And if you will, Mr. Chairman, I'll just go ahead and kick this off if someone has the clicker, if you can head to. So the agenda this morning for the Links work session is we're going to go over the purpose, the Links staff and our staff. As Commissioner Lockhart knows, we all have been working a lot for the last 6 months to look at our transit options. We're going to go over our current system overview. We're going to have Links talk about a proposed restructuring, and then next steps and options, and then we'll have staff recommendation. As you all know, this all started from our budget public work sessions over the summer. You had asked us to look at all options, look at more efficiencies, and how we can be more effective. So with that, I'll turn it over to Christian Swinson, our Assistant County Manager, who will be assisted by Mr. Jex as well.
Good morning, Commissioners. For the record, I'll just state my name, and then I'll go down the row here just for the record. So Christian Swinson, Assistant County Manager. To the left of me is James Boyle. He's the Interim Chief of Planning and Development for Links. And at the end is Tim Jex, as you all know, our Budget Director. So thank you, Darren. As Darren mentioned, we received board direction during the budget workshop to look at our transit system and come up with other ideas. As such, Tim and I took a variety of steps. We met with Volusia County, as they have a transit system as well. We also had a variety of meetings with the Links Planning Department, which you'll hear about in James's portion of the presentation. And then we also had discussions with private microtransit providers as well. And this morning, what we'd like to present to you are 3 options that we see are potential options for our transit system, and then we'll follow up with the recommendations. So to start this, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Jex for option 1. He'll turn it over to Mr. Boyle for option 2, and then it'll come back to me. Go ahead, Tim.
Thank you, Christian. Seminole County is part of a regional transit partnership. We joined around 1992, and that partnership is documented in Florida statutes to include Orange County, Osceola County, Seminole County, and the City of Orlando. Seminole County's contribution percentage based on the approved funding model is 12%, and this is based on vehicle hours and trips within the county. We currently have 11 fixed route bus links, 2 microtransit neighbor link zones, and paratransit/transportation disadvantaged services in the county. One challenge with the current option is that the first line, which shows the total links expenditure budget, it's grown from $148 million in fiscal year 20 up to $208 million in 2025, while system revenues have remained relatively flat. So you can see our funding partner obligation went from 71.4 up to $130 million. This slide shows the FY25 total system cost. The $130 million funding partner obligation is subsidized by $24 million of budget stabilization funds. These are partner reserves that were generated when Links was receiving federal ARPA grant funding, as well as receiving the county contributions in prior years. So the total FY25 net funding partner funding agreements is $106 million. If we look just at Seminole County, we have a $16 million operating contribution requirement, which is subsidized $3 million by our budget stabilization subsidy, bringing us to $13.1 million operating contribution, plus $400,000 for capital contribution and $500,000 for Sunrail feeder routes. And that brings us to a $14 million FY25 funding agreement, which is being presented to the board today for approval. And with that, And then finally, we have a slide provided by Links, which shows in FY25 the $106 million partner contribution, which is projected to grow to $170 million in fiscal year 2030. And you can see in red the spend down of the budget stabilization reserves. That's partly why we're going up by such high percentages. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to James Boyle to talk about Links' proposed changes.
And if anyone has any questions, let's try to hold those to the end of the presentation, please.
All right, thank you, Tim. Good morning, Commissioners, Mr. Chair, Commissioner Lockhart. It's good to see you in a slightly different setting, but I'm glad to be here today to talk to you about Links and some of our recommendations that we're proposing to deliver a better, more efficient transit service to the folks of Seminole County. So I have quite a few items I'm going to cover. I'm going to make it quickly, but some points I definitely want to get across. The agenda here just kind of lays out our path, what we're going to go through, and then how we get to the recommendations that we're going to propose. When we started working with Seminole County staff, we immediately started talking about goals. One of the big goals for our project was to expand transit, to make it more accessible to more people in Seminole County, but also to reduce cost. So we had several work sessions. It was a good time for us to get together and talk about this. And so we developed several goals for our project. we want to expand access to transit throughout the county. Part of our effort, of course, is looking at restructuring the fixed route bus system and focusing those routes on areas of higher demand where we will get more ridership. We want to introduce new and expanded NeighborLink microtransit on-demand services and look at discontinuing fixed route services that frankly are just not getting the ridership that we need to keep those routes running. And we ultimately want to reduce the cost to Seminole County. At a very high level, Tim talked about this a little bit earlier, but we have 11 fixed routes that serve Seminole County. Some of those routes are intra-county, so they only stay within Seminole, and some of those routes also serve Orange County. We have 2 NeighborLink zones, one in Oviedo and one in the Sanford area. Our fiscal year 24 fixed route average weekday ridership was around 6,600 boardings a day. And then the fiscal year 24 Seminole County annual ridership was around 2.1 million. And what I want to make clear is when we talk about ridership in transit, we're talking about trips. We're talking about boardings. So we're not talking about specific people. One person could theoretically make 10 trips in a day. So I just want to be clear so that we're all on the same page about when you hear transit folks talking about trips and riders, we're talking about boarding. So that's how we report ridership. That's how the federal government requires us to report ridership. And our routes don't see county boundaries. It's a system, and that's how we report our ridership as a system. So the current system, oh, now I'm going too fast. Here's what the current system, computer. Sorry, where's the computer? Right there. Oh. There we go. Sorry, I'm not used to the little clicker thing here. So you can see this is our current system, our current network of fixed route bus in Seminole County. You can see we have quite a bit of service. There's a lot of routes that serve Seminole County. Some of those routes do very well. Some of those routes, frankly, don't do very well. And we'll look at that a little bit further in the presentation. And you can also see the 2 NeighborLink zones, the one in Sanford and the one in Oviedo. There we go. Back in 23, we did a O&D, origin and destination survey, and I thought it would be good to show you some of the stats and some of the things that we found by surveying our riders. And this one focuses specifically on those riders who started their trips in Seminole County. And real quickly, I think the biggest thing that stands out is the diversity of ridership of the citizens of Seminole County. Seminole County by far has the most diverse ridership we have on Link. So you can see there's a pretty almost even spread of African Americans, Hispanics, and white folks and other folks who use transit in Seminole County. A majority of those folks have to walk to their bus stop. So access to sidewalks, bike lanes, those are all really important for our riders. And then, you can see that 35% of the riders who board or start their trip in Seminole County work in the service industry. And so we can see a lot of those folks looking at the data in more detail, they travel out of Seminole County into Orange County. A lot of those trips end up in the I-Drive corridor, around Disney, downtown Orlando, and over towards the airport. So there's a significant amount of folks who utilize transit in Seminole County that are making those regional trips and really helping to keep that regional economy going. So we'll talk a little bit about ridership, and this will get us towards why we're going to propose what we're proposing. So this chart represents Seminole County ridership only. And again, this ridership is made up of routes that wholly serve Seminole County or routes that partially are in Seminole and Orange County. So you're going to see a mixing of the two here. But I think you can see the trends are clear. Ridership has been decreasing in Seminole County, really dating back, starting in around 2011, 12, we had our highest ridership in Seminole County, and then it has been trending down. And obviously, what happened in 2020 had a dramatic impact on ridership across the country. And we have been recovering from that. We're up to about 80% now of our ridership of which we had in 2019. And we're averaging about 61,000 trips a day on a weekday, average weekday. So the next couple of charts, we're going to look at route-specific information. And what these charts help us do is to forensically look at the routes. What is the ridership on those routes? What is the productivity? And when I say productivity, I mean, you know, the number of passengers per revenue hour, and that is a very good statistic to look at when you're talking about looking at a route and how to make changes to those routes. That's a very good indicator of how well a route is performing. So this graph shows us average weekday ridership. And as you can see, and you're going to see this as a theme through these slides, there are some routes that do very well, and there are some routes that frankly just don't do well at all. So a lot, the routes that serve Orange County and Seminole County obviously do a lot better. So you can see the 103, the 436s, the 102, they do very well. The orange line represents, the orange horizontal line represents the Link's average, and then the red line you see on your map represents where the Seminole County routes are. So the Seminole County routes fall below the Link's average weekday ridership routes. The next slide is productivity. And this is one that planners really go to when we start looking at a system and trying to figure out how are we going to make the system better, where are we going to make changes. So again, this is passengers per revenue hour. And again, you can kind of see some of those same themes. At Links, we have a standard of 15 passengers per revenue hour. That is our standard. So any route that begins to fall below that, immediately we should be asking questions. Why? What's going on? You know, what do we need to do? The red line represents where the Seminole County productivity is, and you can see that is below the Links average. And it's hard to see the green line there, but it's dotted. Links is basically at our average. So we are at 14.9 passengers per revenue hour. Our standard is 15. So overall, system-wide, we're doing very well. We have some routes that produce over 30 riders per hour, and that is a very strong indicator that a route is doing very well. And some routes, we have ridership that it's over 5,000 trips a day on those routes. So again, it's about what works best for your community. Not everything that works well in Orange County on a route is going to work well in Seminole County. So that's why we look at these numbers, and that is what helps us get to where we get. The last one I want to show you is cost per passenger. And again, you can kind of still see the same themes here. You know, the routes that perform at a lower level, sorry, there we go, cost per passenger. Again, you can kind of see some of the themes, but on this one, the lower the bar, the better. So you're keeping those costs per passengers at a much lower rate than, say, the bars that are much higher. Oops. This thing's different thing. All right, so taking into account all that information and data that we've looked at, we've come up with some proposals. And first I'm going to start with the fixed route, and then we'll talk about NeighborLink. And these are very significant changes. I just want to be clear that, you know, when we go through what we have to go through in our public outreach, these are very big changes. But I think it's needed. It's been over 10 years since we've done a restructuring in Seminole County, and that would have been when Sunrail came online. And before that, it was 2008. So here we are, 10 years. It's time to look at the system. So what we're proposing for the fixed route obviously is reducing the amount of fixed route service in Seminole County. And we want to focus our fixed route on those main corridors where we know we can get ridership, where we know we have ridership, and we know that where we can connect people to businesses and services. And so we're proposing to combine the Link 103 and the Link 34 into one route, and that would be the primary route that would serve Highway 1792 from the Sunrail station all the way to Fern Park Superstop. We also will combine Link 23 and 434 into one route. The Link 23 would basically serve between Rosemont Superstop and Winter Park. Frequency adjustments will also be made on Link 436 North that would impact weekday evenings and Saturday service. And we're proposing no changes to Link 1, 106, and 436 South. We will be discontinuing several routes that serve the Lake Mary area and also in Sanford. And we are going to be looking at an expansion of our NeighborLink service to allow those folks who live in those communities to still have access to transit. And I will say, we do get requests a lot from the city of Sanford about expanding transit service. So just putting these things out there for us to think about and consider as we go through this process. And we will adjust the span of service on several routes to match the ridership. So we look at ridership We look at ridership by time of day, weekend versus weekday, and that's how we make adjustments on spans of service. Okay, so this is what the fixed route network would look like. You can see there's a significant reduction in fixed route service, mostly in Lake Mary and the Sanford area. You see the 46W, the 46E, the 34, the 45, lots of changes here. So, it's significant. We still have a good amount of fixed route service down in Altamont Springs, in the southern Lakewood area. So we are preserving some of where the most of our activity occurs. This is just a chart that shows headways of the proposed routes, and I put this up here because, headways are important. And when we say headways, we mean how often does the bus come? So on those routes where we have service every 30 minutes, you're really going to see a bigger usage of that route. Routes that run every 60 minutes or even, 120 minutes, those basically are just your lifeline routes. Folks that have no option, no opportunity to use anything else, those folks will use those routes. But people who have the ability to either choose transit or choose another mode, they're more than likely not going to go the route that comes every hour. All right, so the second part of this is our NeighborLink improvements, and I think this is really important. This kind of gets it to what we talked about earlier about opening up more accessibility to transit in Seminole County. And NeighborLink has actually been around since 2009, and it was a little bit ahead of its time back then. So we do have an on-demand service. It's not a pure on-demand service. There are time points in our zone, so the vehicle at a certain time will have to be at a location. And part of what we're going to talk about is changing the way that we operate NeighborLink and make it more like a true on-demand service. So we want to expand the NeighborLink service in Seminole County, especially in those areas where we see a significant amount of fixed route going away. We want to focus NeighborLink to be a community circulator. So people can stay within their community, get to shopping, get to the doctor's office, get to school if need be. And again, we want to provide a true on-demand service, and this requires a change in the way we operate NeighborLink, but we're looking at doing that, system-wide. And we're looking at using smaller vehicles with a wait time of about 30 minutes, and we'll talk a little bit more about that and how it's going to work. So the map you have in front of you here shows what we worked on with Seminole County staff, and this is just a proposal. I just kind of want to say that it probably will change based upon, further working sessions we have and then the direction we go with if we're going to do this in-house or if we're going to do a private provider. But you can see we're opening up a lot of the county to this on-demand service, especially where the fixed route is going away. Now, I do just want to put out a little bit of words of caution. We have to be very careful. We can't just simply say we're going to take away all the fixed route and put in on-demand service. On-demand service is very limited. It doesn't scale very well. So you got to make sure that there's not a high demand for ridership, because if there is, you're never going to be able to meet that demand, and you're going to run into issues of having enough vehicles to provide the trips that you need to provide. And we've met with Votran and Volusia County. We've talked with them about how their system works and some of the lessons learned from them. And I'm also pulling from my past experience in California, where we operated 9 on-demand zones in our service area. So there are some lessons to be learned, and I just want to be very clear. It is a great service. It has a place, but we can't just think of it as a one-to-one replacement for a fixed route. The spans of service we had proposed for NeighborLink, really this again is up for discussion, and we'll work through that with the staff, but we want to just kind of give you an idea. So we would look at, system-wide, probably a minimum of 8 to 9, 10 vehicles. Estimated wait time of 30 minutes or less is what we would like to have. And then we are proposing no service on Sundays. There really is not a strong demand for this type of service on Sundays, and even so really on the weekends, but we are looking at trying to keep it consistent and keep service Monday through Saturday. These two charts basically show the population and who has access to transit. So this chart represents fixed route, and the blue line represents the current system we have. So those are the folks that live within 3/4 miles of a fixed route. You can see it's about 115,000, And then we also break it down by the minority population, total households. So you can see this is the folks who reside or work within 3/4 miles of a fixed route. Now, you're going to see a big change here, and this comes with the addition of adding the on-demand zones. You're opening up the county, more people in the county, more households in the county to have some kind of accessibility to transit. And that's kind of the beauty of microtransit and on-demand. You have a defined zone. Everyone within that zone can have access to the on-demand service. But again, we just caution about size of the zone, the demand of the zone. So those are things that we will still have to work through. Cost, what I tried to do here was just show you fixed route cost and our current NeighborLink cost. And this is, so you have the fiscal year 25. This is where we are today. This is in the funding agreement, I believe, that you're going to be voting on later on. So you have the fixed route, total number of hours, the cost, and then going across the chart there, you see what we're proposing for fiscal year 26. And we did this in full year, so you could kind of get a feel for what are the savings going to be, because we talked about savings early on. And so what we're proposing, if we go with the model of the fixed route reductions that I presented to you earlier, we're really looking at a savings of about $3.85 million annually, just in reducing the fixed route service alone. And again, it's up to the county and your discretion. How much of that you use to put towards an expanded on-demand service will be up to you. So you're just cutting fixed route, reducing service. It's about $3.85 million. So on-demand service, there's two different ways it could function. And I wanted to show this to you so you can kind of get an idea. The first model would be basically what we have today. Lynx operates the service in-house, but what we would propose would be to put out a bid for software. So this is known as software as a service model. So there are companies out there who do provide the software. Rideco, Via does this, and some other systems do this as well. But Lynx would own the buses, Lynx would own the operators, Lynx would still maintain the customer service. We would just contract with the private vendor for the software to actually dispatch the vehicles and tell them where to go and who to pick up next. The other model we could look at is basically just doing a turnkey operation, putting it out a bid for vendors to propose. And so this is what you see with Via, how it operates at Votran. They have a total turnkey operation. So vehicles, customer service, that is all with the vendor. City of Kissimmee does the same thing with Freebie. So they have their Freebie that operates in City of Kissimmee. And this is the model that Lynx basically uses for Access Lynx, which is our paratransit service. So I don't want to forget about our paratransit and ADA folks, and I think this is important that we don't lose this part of it in our conversation. But the biggest impact that will occur as we work through this process, and if we are going to reduce fixed route services, the immediate impact is going to be those folks who currently reside within 3/4 miles of a buffer of a fixed route. Per FTA regulations, we have to provide them paratransit service. And so we do that at a reduced rate. So they're paying about, I think, $4 a trip. Now, if the fixed route goes away, we still provide the service. It's just that their cost is going to go up. So that's something that we need to think about and be aware when we talk about reducing fixed route service. So going back to on-demand, one of the things that we can talk about and we'd propose is possibly doing a pilot with an on-demand provider. We have had discussions with Freebie. I know your staff has met with Freebie. They currently have a contract with Monroe County Transit down in Key West, and that contract is piggybackable, so we could use it. We could do a pilot, and this would be countywide. This wouldn't just be one zone. We would take all the zones in Seminole County and we would do a pilot with Freebie just to kind of get a flavor for it, you know, to see how it goes and see if there's something that we really want to do and are interested in moving forward. So I know it's a lot. The timeline slide kind of lays it out. There's a lot of things that we would have to work through and things that have to take place. So obviously we're here today. We'd love to receive some direction, kind of what are your thoughts, how would you like us to proceed? And then I think the biggest part of what we're going to have to do is think about outreach to our stakeholders and outreach to our customers. This could be very disruptive for folks who do use links, and I recognize there might not be 1 million people in Seminole County using links, but for those folks who do use links, it's their lifeline. I mean, that's how they get to work, that's how they get to school. So our outreach to them is going to be really important, and we want to make sure that we're listening to them, that we're hearing them, and that we try to do what we can do to make it best for them. So we have our service change process that we go through. So we would do our public involvement. We would need to make presentations to the Links Finance and Audit Committee, to the Links Oversight Committee. Then we'd have to go and make presentations to the Links Board. So you can see in the timeline here that we're really looking at next year before any of this could be implemented. And that gives us enough time to really go and do those steps that we need to do. We need to think about the Title VI implications, for those folks who are underserved, and especially in our underserved communities. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Tim. Thank you.
Tim's turning over to the clicker because I'm not responsible with that. If you thought James had trouble, we'd be here for an hour of just having me change one. So, I'm presenting the third option, and the third option's a bit of a different one. So in the conversations we had with Links, there was a lot of discussions about zones and the number of zones and things like that and the importance of zones. And as Tim and I were talking to microtransit providers, we discovered a different approach, which was the city of Arlington, Texas. So with this, I just want to present a little bit about how they're doing things. So the city of Arlington, believe it or not, is fairly similar to us in a lot of ways. You'll see a chart here that compares both. If you take out our rural boundary, we're at 160 square miles. Arlington's at 100. We have a very similar population. We also have similar income levels. Our commute times are the same, and we're both suburban communities. And for those not familiar with Arlington, we have a graphic here. It is nestled between Fort Worth and Dallas, and you can see there on the little shaded area, and there's kind of just a spin around to give you an overall idea. So Arlington was the largest city in the country without transit prior to 2017. Now, prior to 2017, they did have an elderly and disabled service. And because of that, they were a direct recipient for federal funding just for that. They were not part of the regional transportation systems in either Dallas or Fort Worth. They were just kind of an island out there with only that elderly and low-income service. In 2017, they established a microtransit system, but they did it differently than what James had just presented. They did it as a single zone for the whole city. They also did a corner-to-corner approach. So instead of going door to door, they lined out a variety of corners within the city. And my understanding is there's quite a lot of them, and that's where you're picked up and dropped off. They, similar to what James talked about, they have a 15 to 30-minute pickup window and a very similar schedule of a Monday through Saturday service. Their fare structure is a tiered fare structure depending on how far you go in their zone. The further you go, the more you pay. It's a $3 to $5. They do offer passes, like most transit systems. And then what they've done is they've made it free to low income and also students. Because it's one large zone, they had 75 shuttles in the zone, and they move about 3,000 to 4,000 riders per week within there. Now, their ridership, they know for sure. They have apps. You have to register as a rider. You have a profile and all those things. So they know those numbers are fairly solid. James talked a little bit about, kind of the blending of the routes. This is just in the city of Arlington. As mentioned, it is a single zone, and as mentioned as well, they are not part of the Dallas or the Fort Worth transit systems, but they want connectivity to those, so they have point locations where the microtransit can take you to a point to get on either of those transit systems, and they similarly have a point into their commuter rail system. Now, what made it interesting was the cost to provide this. Their overall cost for the on-demand service, the single zone, excluding the elderly and low-income portions, 11 to 12 million. The low-income and elderly, which is similar to a paratransit TD type thing, but there are some differences, is 2 to 3 million. They do receive 6 to 7 million, as I mentioned to you before, because they are a recipient of federal funds already. And then they also subsidize the low income with CDBG funds, as you'll see on the chart. So the net cost of their general funds about 6 million. Because they are a direct recipient, they did talk about the amount of reporting and things like they have to do to FTA. So they have dedicated staff members that are involved with their transit system. They actually have 4, although all 4 of them, none of them are full-time dedicated to this. So all of them have other duties with the city. So we guess that there's probably 2 full-time equivalent employees that are dedicated to this when you take out their other duties. So here's a slide that just shows Seminole County. We're all familiar with it. Seminole County is 345 square miles. When you take out the rural boundary, it goes to the 160 square miles. But ultimately, to get it to Arlington is the yellow area. And that is effectively, that's 100 square miles. It's the area between I-4 and the 417. As you can see, it goes from the southern boundary of the county up to Lake Monroe. The other thing that we learned from not only looking at Arlington and discussions with James at Links and everything, there's kind of unlimited zone configurations. There's really a lot of ways to do this. All of them have a transition period, as James mentioned. You've got to provide notification to riders. You've got to market the new system. You've got to do things like that. If you were to attempt to get grants on your own, you would need to become one of the direct recipients, and there is also a time period to do that as well. Because of this, we recommend that a solicitation is really in order to kind of look at the whole host of things going to be provided by the vendors, and really not just look at one idea, but look at a bunch of them with cost comparisons. There's also, as James indicated as well, we found the vehicle ownership model changes depending on who it is. Some folks have the provider own the vehicle, some of them the entities own the vehicles. But we are recommending that there should be connections into a fixed route system like Link, so that way you're part of a regional player. These are our recommended next steps. We are recommending to continue conversations with regional transit entities, continue conversations with Volusia County and see if there's some other regional connectivity possibilities, to identify sources for grants to help fund this, and then we're ultimately recommending to issue a solicitation for proposals and encourage Links to bid that with what James has shown, as well as any other options they have, so that way we have a full look at everything that's available. We believe the timeline will take approximately a year. So here is our recommendation that's shown on the screen. Basically, it's what I said, to issue a proposal to look at a number of zones with connectivity to Sunrail as well as fixed routes. Also have people opine on the obtainment of grants, and then provide an invite to Links to bid. And as due to the timeline, we're also recommending to approve item 21, which was pulled from the consent calendar, to do the funding agreement with Links. So with that, I'll be happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Any questions for staff at this time?
Sure. You want to start down there?
We'll start at this end. Commissioner Herr had her hand up first, and work our way down the dais.
That was an exceptionally thorough presentation. So let's start with questions for Links. Why have the system revenues remained flat for so long? Let's take COVID out of it. I realize there's a dip, but we're back up to where we started all those years ago.
Right. So I do have a team here with me.
Do you want Lenny to come up
I'm going to have
rescue
Lenny
you?
answer the questions that pertain to finance and budget.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commission members.
Name for the record, if you would, Lenny.
Lenny Antman, CFO Links. The system revenues stay flat. Part of it is the revenues from fare revenue. As ridership has gone down, that revenue has gone down a little bit. It is starting to come back up, but not at the level it was pre-COVID. But the rest of it is grants from the federal government, where we get a certain amount of dollars each year from FTA. Most of that is used for capital because we don't have dedicated funding. any monies that we take out of there come off of what's available for capital equipment. So we take out approximately $6.8 million towards operating the fixed route each year, which was a level that was recommended by the Board of Directors with Lynx. Also about $2.5 million towards the operation of the paratransit operation. Any more than that would reduce us to the level of not having sufficient dollars for capital revitalization. Beyond that, we get a block grant from the state. It stays fairly flat. It's been in the $12 to $14 million range for several years, and it doesn't change drastically. We have a little bit of advertising revenue, but it's been around $2 to $3 million a year. We only have so many buses. We can't advertise more than we have buses to have out there.
When's the last time you changed fares?
And while there's actually was brought before the board, we're actually going out to do the analysis now to see if it warrants a fare change. I believe the last time was, what, 2009?
It was 2009.
There have been analysis done twice since then. Both times it came back and the board recommended not increasing it, but we are in the middle of that process again right now.
Okay, thank you. The next question I think is going to be just a little bit harder because it's philosophical. That was my easy question, by the way. I'm going to tell you that I sit here rather embarrassed, having sat on your board for a year, thinking that this work was actively being done by Lynx on our behalf, and finding out that it really wasn't. And so if we choose to stay with Lynx, what is the assurance that this due diligence, and I realize we're only 12% of the pie, and by the way, Osceola County, if you're watching this, maybe you want to have this due diligence done as well, to make sure that we don't have routes. When I look at the bar graphs around the underperforming routes, that should have been identified years ago and adjusted years ago. We vote on route changes how often a year on that board?
A minimum of 3 times.
A minimum of 3 times, 4 in the year I was there. But this isn't being brought to the attention of the board. And so I just can't fathom how this has gone on for all these years, and I'd be remiss if I didn't say, in the beginning, I thought you were crazy, Commissioner Lockhart, but it has turned out, once again, that you were visionary in terms of this isn't feeling right, we got to dig, and thank goodness we're here. So what would change in the Lynx management process to assure that we never end up, or any of your partners don't end up in this situation? And how is it that we get, let's call it like it is, we'll never get an equal footing to Orange County at this table, but we ought to have an equal process in terms of protecting taxpayer money. And if it's not happening down there, it should happen there as well, by the way.
Yes, I hear what you're saying, Commissioner Herr, and, you know, in my time at Lynx, this has been the first time that we have had a level of involvement from Lynx, Seminole County staff. So I will say, having the involvement from the staff has been really important.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but our staff sits on every one of your committees. They attend regularly, and this is the first time that you've had aggressive involvement at Commissioner Lockhart's
Yes.
demand and direction. Those are 2 different things. We don't want to have to walk into a room kicking and screaming.
And you shouldn't have to, Commissioner, and I agree with you. And so my promise to you is that beyond what we do, we provide monthly ridership reports and quarterly ridership reports in every board packet. So we do make information available. But my commitment is that we will go over and beyond that. We will have constant communication with your staff. And I will say, in every service change, we do communicate with staff. So there are times where we may propose things, and this may have happened in the past, that frankly there wasn't a lot of interest from the staff level to make any kind of major changes to the system. And I can understand, because it's a big deal. You know, when you talk about discontinuing fixed route service, it's a big deal. So I can understand that. But my commitment to you and to this commission is that, as the interim planning director, I will do what I need to do to make sure that your staff, Christian and Tim, everyone understands where we are with ridership. If there are routes that are not performing, I will bring it to the attention of staff, and we will have that discussion, and we will come back to the commission for any kind of recommendations or approvals and follow our approval process through our board. And again, I'm sorry that those things did happen in the past, but my commitment is moving forward. As long as I'm part of the Links team, I will make sure that we're doing what we need to do to make you comfortable when it comes to decision-making time.
So as a process improvement opportunity, and this is really for you as the executive director, Tiffany, I think that there should be routine reporting of underperforming routes for the entire system to the board in a manner that says, should we be rethinking these? Because we are 12% of the bigger piece of this. So if you manage the overall cost of the system, the 12% goes down as well, even though the 12 stays 12. So the bigger picture of underperforming routes need to be addressed as a system whole is a big deal. To that end, I think you have a chart in here that plots the ridership. I would ask you to also plot on that same chart the cost over the years. So it was ridership over the years. I'd like to see the cost over the years plotted with that, shared with your board and your partners.
Okay, we can do that.
Because I think until you dashboard these items and put them together, you don't realize the severity of the problem. And I think that's part of the issue. I would point out that the reason why you're getting this angst from me is that 3/4 of our routes are below Link standards. I don't know why we even have a standard. If you're talking about process improvement, it just doesn't make sense. In your suggestions, why is there no change suggested for Link 1, which is clearly underperforming?
I think the majority of that route resides in Orange County, and part of our process, we have to look at the routes that impact Orange County as well. So we were really trying to focus more on the routes that are wholly within Seminole County. But if you would like us to look at Route 1 and come up with the recommendation, we can do that, Commissioner. We would just have to make sure that we're communicating and working very closely with Orange County staff as well on that route.
I certainly don't want to be hampered because there's a county line to making sure we have the most efficient and effective use. So, yes, I would ask for that.
Okay.
You said that the paratransit cost would go up because the distance changes, or whatever the reason was. Can you give me an idea of what it would go up to and from?
So the cost of operating paratransit wouldn't change, it's the cost to the customer.
That's my question.
Yes, so FTA requires that we provide complimentary paratransit service within 3/4 miles of a fixed route. And so as a part of that program, it is at a reduced rate. And so currently, those folks pay $4 a trip, one-way trip. Now, if the fixed route goes away, then it goes to the $7 fare, the one-way fare that they would pay because that buffer is no longer there. And that is the federal requirement. So they would have to pay the $7 fare.
So from $4 to $7.
Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to get that on the record because it sounded like it would go from $4 to $50. It's from $4 to $7.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And then the last question, I think just is warrants being discussed publicly. Why would we run an RFP, as I understood it, for freebie through Links?
Well, I think that kind of goes back to part of what Christian was talking about, the different options that we have. Now, as Links being the regional transportation provider, I mean, we would love to keep it whole, keep it all intact. And if there's a desire from the commission to look at a different model to operate our NeighborLink service, we're very open to that. And to be honest with you, we're looking at NeighborLink as a whole anyway. So we are going to be probably looking at doing an RFP for all the NeighborLink service to make it a true on-demand service, to make it operate more like what you see in Volusia County and down in Kissimmee with freebie. So the county can choose to stay with Links, and we would handle that part of it, and we would do the RFP and that part of it. Or, as Christian said, you could go a different route. But I think in the spirit of regionalism, we would very much want to be involved, and be a part of that, and really just to keep the transportation seamless for our customers and for your residents as well.
So my commentary with regard to that is that I think at the point that we start to figure this out, there may be parallel paths that have to be run at the same time. I would certainly like to understand what options are available to Seminole County that may never make it through your system to this board, because they go through the grind of all of your committees to the Links Board, which is Orange County dominated, and then we get what the result of that is. And we would never know that we could have tweaked this, played with that, the other, if we don't do this ourselves in addition to you doing it as well. I agree that we want to stay regional. We also want to say wildly effective and wildly efficient at the same time. So the next question, I appreciate your answers and I appreciate your candor with all of that. Christian, I have questions for you.
Certainly.
In order to make the Arlington model work in Seminole County, it looks like you just chopped out a bunch of geography. It's kind of solving for the...
I think we normalized it. We normalized it, though, based upon where transit is currently. I mean, there's not transit in the rural boundary other than paratransit and things like that.
There is transit on the other side of the county, where we took out the WARPA, and there's buses that run up there now.
There are some limited buses that run out there. If we go back to...
It's probably an underperforming route, I appreciate that. But we struck it out of the discussion.
Well, it's a 46 routes is what we're talking about. If we can go to that, here we go. So there are some things that go over there. You are correct. They are very underperforming. As mentioned in our recommendation, there's 1,000 ways to kind of hack this up. What we were attempting to do was say, okay, this is what the cost is for 100 square miles in Arlington. What does that look like in Seminole County? We're certainly not trying to say, hey, anyone to the west of I-4 should be a no-go for transit. We're truly just trying to say apples to apples, this is where it goes. And to your comment, this is really why we're recommending to put RFPs out to get all these out there. Because there's a lot of discussion on how this can go. Even when we sat down with Links, we're moving things and we're looking at things, but these are policy decisions, truthfully. They're not staff decisions of where the board would like that. The whole intent was for the 100 square miles was to attempt to normalize it and show it's close. But it certainly could change.
All right, that's it. Thank you, Chairman.
Sure. Okay, Commissioner Delory.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On one of your slides, I think it's slide 17 that I have, talks about the existing services, and you have 6,644 weekday riderships. Is that just Seminole County?
Those would be all the routes, Commissioner Delory.
That's the what?
All of the routes that serve Seminole, and including the ones that partially serve Orange County. So that's all of the
Is there any
routes.
way, there must be through technology, just to peel out what's Seminole County ridership?
So
There has to be.
what we do know is the routes that are just wholly contained within Seminole County. And so if we just look at the routes that are wholly within Seminole County, those average weekday boardings fall to around 1,600. So that's just the routes that serve only Seminole County. So
Do we know how many
46
riders are going into Orange then?
Do we know how many riders are going into Orange?
Yeah.
Off the top of my head, Commissioner Delory, I don't know, but I can certainly look at getting you those numbers.
Because you talked about, regional, where people from other parts from our county are going into other parts of the region.
Right.
I tried that a couple times,
It's really hard.
and hard is not the word.
It's difficult.
It's extremely difficult.
Yeah, I mean,
I
it
tried to
really-
go from Sanford down to the link station. It took me 2 hours,
I understand.
and that's because I made all my stops, and I made the transfer as well. So I'd like to get some information on that, because really, how many people are really going into Orange? I mean, there may be a bunch. I don't know that number yet.
Yeah.
But I'd like to know what that number is, to see the importance of it and to put the weight behind it. And I'm going to echo what Commissioner Hurd talked about, as well as what we're hearing from Commissioner Lockhart. You're all the experts. You should be telling us. The time we get involved is once a year when we talk about the budget, and we've always been told the budget's the budget. And, I don't really hear on regular basis of where the savings are coming from, or if there is savings, or what you're doing to increase ridership. Education is the big thing. We all know that. And, how are you getting new riders? Or are you just waiting for people to say, I need to take links to go someplace? That's not how you get new riders. But I'd like to know how many people are going in from Seminole to Orange.
Okay.
And what that number actually is. And Commissioner Hart was talking about Links 1, Route 1. It goes to prove the point. Unless we ask a specific question, it's very difficult to get information from you all. I mean, until she asked that question, you didn't tell us that it's an underperforming route. It's a route that we should be looking at. It's like pulling teeth sometimes getting information. It's very difficult. And then, as I go through your presentation, on slide 20, it talks about the ridership metrics. That's just the fixed route. That doesn't even talk about the paratransit, which is just as important, as well as the need for working with the individuals for Title VI. I'd like to know how all that plays into a role. Through technology, if people are buying digital bus passes, they should be able to figure out where they're getting on and where they're getting off, I would think.
So, Commissioner, we do have technology where, people can, and we're actually switching to a whole new fare system. So we're about to upgrade our fare system so people can use their phone to tap on, to pay their fare when they get on, and also tap with credit cards. So
just stop right there. So if you're doing a new digital ridership ticket, is it paired with Sunrail?
At this time,
it's either yes or
Commissioner,
no. Yes or no?
No.
No.
Okay, I know the answer.
And what I will say, Commissioner DeLong.
So we have to pay for it again twice.
Well, we have transfers. So, people.
But if we want to pair the two again, we have to pay for it again.
Commissioner, that is something that we would have to work on Sunrail with, yes.
So why do we have to pay for it if you're just doing it?
Again, it's.
Government money can only be spent once.
I understand, Commissioner. I understand. And what I will say is, people, they can tap on, tap off, and that gives us a unique rider, right?
I understand.
Now, almost 50% of our folks pay with cash, so it's very hard for us to track individual riders. And I know that's a question we get a lot, and one way to do that is, people tapping on, you have unique identifiers. And Sunrail is a good example of that. Most people pay with, the tap to pay thing now there too, so.
All right, you talk about your ridership metrics and about the link standard. What's the national standard that we should be looking at as well? Is the link standard below the national or above it?
So the national standard is 20. 20 passengers per revenue hour is a national standard for fixed route bus. And granted, it's a guideline. There's not like the FTA
I understand that,
sets
but
out.
we should be looking at things not just nationally, but in the southeast. What's that ridership number? And not just what we think we need to be looking at.
So we look at our peers, our regional peers, and we have several in Florida that we look at, and including the southeast. And so really for the southeastern region, for Florida, 15 passengers per revenue hour on a fixed route bus is pretty good. That's,
But if we do education and try to get people to promote it, it should be higher then.
Oh, most definitely. If we had more people riding the bus, getting people on those buses, then absolutely, 20 passengers per revenue hour, that should be the minimum.
That's all based on education, incentives, and getting people used to riding transit. That's the bottom line.
Right.
I go to slide 24. It talks about removing some of the routes, which is 45, 46E, 46 West. What's that going to do to those areas from the economic aspect of it? Has anybody looked at that?
Well, Commissioner, there's no doubt that people will be impacted. And I think the impact is really going to be more on those folks who use those routes for their daily travel needs. The economic impact of removing the bus route, I can't sit here and tell you I know what that's going to be.
We haven't looked at it yet.
We have not looked at an economic impact. To be honest with you, that's not something we always look at when we're talking about discontinuing a route. it's really more about the customer and the passengers and how that's going to impact their daily lives.
Okay. So we also have a transportation model and a traffic transit model, the county does, as well as the region. How does all that play into that aspect? Have we looked into that? I'm going to ask Christian. I'm not asking you. I'm asking our staff.
We have not compared it to any regional transportation models. There's so many options out there, and that could certainly be part of an RFP process to align it with that, but there's just so many options as to what could be picked here.
Okay. So we haven't looked at our transportation master plan at all, how this actually plays into it then?
No, sir.
Okay. Okay. Again, you talk about expanding the new service if we did do this with the neighbor links. I'd like to start talking to the cities about this to get their buy-in, not just their buy-in, but what their needs are and how they want to be a partner with us, because I think that's just as important. Because I think we need to bring the 7 cities in, because I'm sure we're going to hear from them. There's no reason why I don't bring them in earlier.
Commissioner, we do have that built into our timeline, so we will be meeting with the municipalities with staff.
I like the aspect of what our staff was looking at about the Arlington model because of the grant aspect of it. That's where they really get their savings from. So I'd like to get some more information on that. And if we were looking at, through your recommendation, I'd like to include the 7 cities as well as the hospital and the college. And I think it's important that the hospital, all the hospitals and the colleges are involved. The biggest aspect of it is that we've gotten reports from our staff that individuals are missing their medical appointments. It's extremely high. I think the last time I remember is like 35% of the people are missing their medical appointments. I want to make sure that we're not going to be causing more trouble with that, and we haven't really addressed that yet. We haven't really addressed the paratransit issue as well. So there's a lot of things that we still got to keep on pulling to get information from you. I'd like to see another work session to address all these issues. I think we're just starting to scratch the issue, and I think, well, the surface. We keep on talking about transit, which is important. We need to have some dialogue with our community, the entire county, and the 7 cities. But it's very difficult to get information from the staff of Lynx. And we do this once a year. We've done it, not to this depth, but we've done it before. I remember the year that they were going to cut the service to the Goldsboro area. That's how the neighborhood links happened, because there was 3 or 4 rows in the back of people sitting here talking about how we're cutting their bus service. And if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't be having the neighborhood link area served. And the same thing with Oviedo now. So I don't know what the formula is, but I don't do buses to the way you do. But I also think that we should be going out on the street ourselves and doing a dual track of either doing it ourselves as it's recommended here by including the 7 cities and the hospitals and the school, college, not the elementary schools. I'm talking about the college when I say schools. But I think that's just as important. And there are dollars out there. We need to have a holistic approach, and I don't see that Lynx is bringing their best foot forward to us to explain what needs to happen yet. And I'm still waiting for that dialogue. And that's where I stand. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Anything else?
Nope, I'm good.
Commissioner Lockhart.
All right. Thank you, James. I know you have kind of been sent as tribute. And so you are very new to Lynx. And so I appreciate you being willing to bring that knowledge with you from your prior roles and help us figure out what's going to work best for Seminole County. One of the things that I have found in my short tenure on the Lynx board is that, to Commissioner Herr's point, regionalism has benefits and drawbacks, because you do only get the benefit of what the collective hive mind is bringing forward. And there could be a lot of things that are left on the table that may work very well for Seminole County that we would not be able to implement for lack of being able to persuade others on the board for whom it may not be a benefit for them, right? We are very distinctly different communities, one not better or worse, just different. We utilize transportation differently in Seminole County than in downtown Orlando, certainly. So I do think it is incumbent upon us to do our own research and RFP, RFI process parallel, to use the same word that Commissioner Herr used, with whatever it is that Lynx is pursuing. Talking about cost effectiveness and getting information and how do we make the entire system more cost effective, more efficient. I'm not sure that every partner has the same passionate goals that we do about the cost effectiveness. Not only do we have different goals, but I think we have different pain thresholds. Our pain threshold in Seminole County is very low. Other partners, are a little bit higher. When I've talked and asked before about how do we get the cost down, the response that I have received in the past is, well, tell us what you want to pay, and we'll build a program for that. And it feels very much like as a woman trying to buy a car at a car dealership. Well, darling, you just tell me what you want your monthly payment to be, and I'll find that car for you.
And when your husband comes in, we'll help you.
And I'll play that. So that is not the way that we are going to get to, from my perspective, efficiency and cost-benefit analysis and working on this solution. One of the things that I have loved learning about Freebie, and I did sit at a Florida Association of Counties conference where they were a sponsor and had a session that you could come and sit and learn about microtransit. They are not just a transit agency, they are actually partnering with the private sector, and they view themselves as being a partner in economic development because of the way that they utilize their app and partner with businesses and downtown areas. And I can see there being something very unique and beneficial about that model. But I don't know as much about the VIAs and the Arlingtons and what have you. So I would still like to have an RFP where people can come in and educate us and pitch the particular positives of their model. The college, I agree with you wholeheartedly. The college currently funds a portion of the Lynx budget. From Seminole County, it's a very, very small portion. I was able to get numbers from Dr. Lorenz that she had been provided by Lynx of ridership numbers. We had the same conversation about how do we drill down and find out exactly how many of our students are utilizing the service. It's nearly impossible. We think there's maybe a good guesstimate out there, but one of the things that we are not able to do right now with the current model is help our dual enrollment students who are attending one of our Seminole County traditional high schools get to class on a college campus. And in talking with Dr. Lorenz and our executive team, we would love to see how that could be done. Any way that we can increase access to education at Seminole State College, we want to do that. I don't think with the numbers that we have right now, we can say that the money that we contribute, I'm weeing my college hat for a moment, the money that we contribute at Seminole State College, we really don't know how much that's benefiting and contributing toward getting students access to education. There's no way for us to know. But we're excited about the opportunities potentially with our traditional students and dual enrollment students. The slide, and Commissioner Delary, kudos to you for seeing numbers on these slides because I don't see them on mine. But
I had to print it out to get it.
Okay, the proposed service improvements fixed route on the link slide, and I'm so sorry, I don't know what number it is.
I probably have it on the computer. Which one are you looking for, Commissioner?
Proposed service improvements fixed route, maintain service on key corridors is the first bullet. and we talk about combining the four different
Current and
routes.
proposed? Is that what you're looking for, the current? and
Yep,
It's the
that's
slide
it.
that says proposed service improvements at the
That's
top.
it.
That one? Yeah.
So the third sub-bullet, frequency adjustments to links 436 North on weekday evenings and Saturday. Are those frequency adjustments being adjusted up or down?
I believe we're adjusting those down.
Okay. And when I compared the link's average weekday ridership by route bar graph with the existing service map, I was looking at, where are, instead of continuing to fixate on the underperformers, because that's my nature, is to focus on the glass being half empty, I was like, I'm going to flip this. I'm going to look at the ones that are actually performing well. Where are those? And 102 is on the bar graph, but I don't see it on the map or in the bullet.
It's the one, Commissioner, on 1792 south, going into Orange County. It's south of Altamont Springs at the Super Stop. If you see it, if you pull up the map at the bottom.
Down Fern Park South, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a little purple. That's the existing service. Yeah.
You also,
Go to the next slide, Tim. I think it shows the 102 bullet on mine. Go back.
So we go 46 West, 103, 106.
Cut it off.
102's on mine.
The
But
one
I'm
that
on the
says
computer
proposed
looking.
Service. If you go to the proposed service slide, it shows right there.
It's
There's 102.
fixed. It's
Yeah, it's
proposed
at the
service
bottom.
Oh,
fixed
it's on
route.
proposed,
It's at the bottom.
but it's current.
It's
It's
a
also
current.
there, it's just not on the map. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, so that's, so that route, and then even though that seems to be a higher performing route, the route that's coming up from 434, the one that's going up to the Altamont Mall, even though it's an underperforming route, somehow we wound up with some type of demographic information on the folks who ride that route. Can someone remind me what we learned about that?
Go ahead. Yeah, I recall it. There's a lot of folks coming from the Eatonville area, and they come up toward the mall.
Yes.
So we suspect that they may be employees at the mall or the hospital, but there was quite a bit of getting on the bus in Orange County. There was some heat zones there at certain times, and then there was heat zones in the evening in the opposite direction.
Okay.
So we're opining that there's workers going there from Eatonville area.
Got it. So that's the kind of information that is probably going to help Commissioner Delary with his question, right?
Sure, yes.
And there's got to be a way of doing that. There has to be. Technology
Well,
exists.
And, and I failed to mention this in part of my presentation, is we record ons and offs. So we know when people get on, we know when people get off, and the figure just within Seminole County, we get about 2.2 million boardings in Seminole County alone. So those are ons and offs. So significant amount of people, and we can look at the route specific, at ons and offs, like where people majority get on, where majority get off. So we can dig down a little bit deeper, Commissioner, into that.
Okay. I think that will be very, very helpful. I understand that anytime we ask someone to change what they've been doing, whether it's for 6 months or 6 years, we're rocking the boat, we're moving the cheese, pick the analogy. But I think what we are saying as a board is we are not wanting to change it to make it worse or less frequent. We are wanting to change it to make it exceedingly better. We want to change it so that it is much more user-friendly and gets people where they want to go with a lot less aggravation, and at the same time, save Seminole County taxpayers millions of dollars.
Amen.
So when we have an opportunity to improve service, reduce cost, I think our citizens and our riders who utilize the service will be thrilled. I recognize initially, depending on how we deliver the message and how we do these community meetings, there may be a lot of concern, but I think the message, at least the message from this commissioner, is we are here to make this better for you, not worse. It's going to take some adjustment because we're going to any change is change, but we are not trying to make this difficult for our citizens or less beneficial to them.
Good. Commissioner Constantine.
whenever you're at the end of the spectrum here, a lot of things have already been said that we can all agree with. So I'm going to try to keep mine as short and brief as possible and just hit the highlights of what I think is important. Christian, Tim, great job. Thank you for really digging into this. Tim, I know you and I have had numerous conversations over the course of time, ever since I was back in Lynx and you were appointed. And Christian, I know that this was something that you really got into and really got to the meat and potatoes. James, thank you very much. I know this is difficult, and I want to thank all the Lynx staff that's here today. I don't want to dwell on the past, although the fact of the matter is that we do know that COVID has had a great deal of effect on the service, the costs. We also know that that because of the dollars that came in from the federal government, that was able to soothe the problem. So a lot of people didn't look at the long-term issues that were going to come up. We also know that if you want to go even before that, because we've been part of this for 32 years, that we've had time and again, leadership problems there that we've had to adjust on the fly. When I came in, it was we found Mr. Harrison to come in from Orange County, and so I know that that was something that caused a lot of disruption in all of the services, and this is tough. I mean, there's no guaranteed income. I mean, if we want to really go boil it down, there is no, fixed income for Lynx other than what they get from the federal government and the revenue partners, which, that comes almost exclusively, especially with us, out of the general revenue. So when you look at all that, it's, as my fellow colleagues have indicated, and again, I'm trying to boil this down, times have changed and technology has changed. And we have stayed on a course that is not taking those into consideration. So I'm just going to tell you as we go forward some of the things that I believe in. I do believe that we are part of regionalism, and we need to respect that. And not everybody's going to get an equal deal in regionalism, but we all represent a community that, by the least of us, we cannot rise without all of us rising. So saying that, I'm going to boil this down to we need, in any system we get to, protect the least of us. That's what government's about, protecting the least of us. And that to me, we're talking about what has been a growth issue at Lynx, and that's paratransit. That is the one thing that whatever we do, Christian, whatever path we decide to go, we need to make sure, and Commissioner Delory's correct. I mean, it was like 35% were missing their doctor's appointments, or they were having to, 24 hours in advance, to try to get a ride. We need to change that. We also need to make it more coordinated, especially since we have 4 stops in Seminole County with the last mile of Sunrail. I think one of the reasons, even though Sunrail is underutilized at this point also, everything, you can't sit there and have it full all the time. But I think that's another reason that Lynx is, has reduced. Nobody has said it, but reduced in the amount of travelers. However, if it was more coordinated, I think with the last mile, I think that would, especially in Seminole County, that would be to a great more benefit for all of us. I agree with Commissioner Lockhart, because I've also talked to Freebie, and there's others. It's not just Freebie. There's many different companies. But I would love to see their success in Monroe County. But I will tell you that we need to look at that. We need to look at that as part of a whole integrated system. I can't disagree with anybody that the communications has not been there. I mean, you all be the first one to admit that it needs to improve. I also believe that we do, because we are paying for the entire county, that we need to coordinate with the cities and try to make sure that we get them on board. I can remember many times when I was in the legislature and even when I was on this board, how Altamont Springs and Lynx has had disagreements. And other cities have had disagreements. So we need to coordinate that. If we're going to put something on ourselves, we need to make sure that we do that. And the last thing, I'm going to put a face on this. Every one of us has seen, whether it's at MPO boards, at Lynx boards, at other transit boards, a Seminole County resident by the name of Joanne.
Oh, yeah.
That's there every single meeting. And God love her. I mean, she finds a way to get there, usually on time.
And wanting a route to the Oviedo bowling alley.
But, and the swimming pool. Country Club Road. And she finds a way to get to Lynx, to MPO, to everything through Sunrail, through Lynx, through every time.
Can I interrupt you for a second real quick about her, Joanne? I actually spent the day with her riding Sunrail. I was amazed and impressed, not just with her knowledge, but the way she rides Sunrail and Lynx, and she knows the routes better than I do.
The way she integrates everything is amazing. I can remember when we usually had one MPO meeting at Habitat for Humanity, and she found a way to get there.
Oh, yeah.
And then I remember her looking around trying to get her a ride back, which is all the way on Mercy, a ride back to the Sunrail. Okay, I digress. What I'm saying
I'm going to say, is this the short version that you were?
Yes, it is, because I was interrupted. I mean, I appreciate it. No, it's okay. But what I'm trying to say is anything we do, it's got to be a better service for people like that. Because that's who we're really trying to serve, the least of us. The people that need this 100% to get anywhere. Get to the paramedic Olympics, whatever it is, the bowling alley, the Special Olympics. Did I say paramedic? I'm sorry. Special Olympics, whatever it is. I mean, she goes there 24/7, 7 days. That's what she wants. But what I'm saying is, we need to find a way to make sure that she has the opportunity, and I use she collectively, has the opportunity to get from one location to another.
Commissioner,
That's it.
Commissioner, I recommend spending a day with her. I learned a lot.
I spent a lot of time.
If y'all could go to one of the slides on the status quo portion for me, please. Showing the bus routes, Lynx current services in Seminole County. No. It's got a picture of a bus and a paratransit bus.
Oh, this one.
Keep going back. I think we go back. It's your blue pages.
It's in the beginning.
Oh,
it's part of
sure, Tim, that's Tim's.
There you go. A lot's been said. I'm not going to say it all again. First, my first year in office, Tim Jex and I had a conversation about how broken Lynx is. You all are all good people. I don't want you to take this wrong. As a businessman, when I looked at all the modeling and what's happening, this is not efficient for Seminole County. The model is antiquated, it's outdated, and this type of transit system belongs in a core city center, not throughout the entire MSA of Orlando. 11 fixed route bus links, 2 neighborhood link zones, and the paratransit, and we're paying $14 million a year. Just let that sink in for just a second. That's a lot of money. I thank Commissioner Lockhart for accepting the appointment. I knew she would be able to dig in and get some answers and get our staff involved. So thanks, staff, for doing that. There was a couple things that were said, I think we have to put in perspective, is each county has its own perspective of what they find important. And I think it's been said, not necessarily what Seminole County finds important. Underperforming in Seminole County is going to be a far different narrative than underperforming in Orange County or City of Orlando, et cetera, et cetera. So as far as I'm concerned, I've been ready to rip the Band-Aid off the links discussion for now 6 years, and really put a modern model in place that is serving the citizens in a true, efficient fashion with the least amount of dollars. I don't know that we do away with all links. I think we need to maintain a corridor through the spine of our county, going north and south. I think you need a hybrid program, maybe stay with links on some routes, and then we need to adopt our own modeling for the others, whether it be Freebie or one of their competitors. I've met with Freebie, Movo. I'm familiar with some of the others, but it's got to get fixed. And I don't believe going with this premise that RFPs would be run by links. Quite frankly, they can't turn quick enough. They're not nimble enough. They're too big of an organization. They're too weighed down. Again, they're good people, but their model is just not designed to turn as quick as we need it to turn. And quite frankly, I think it's been said it needed to turn 5, 6, 10 years ago. You've heard some of the things that have been said. Fares haven't changed since 2008, 2009. There are people in our community that have to have transportation, but arguably at $14 million a year, I'm pretty sure we could get a frequent card with Uber and have all the people we need to run anywhere we want throughout this region. So I'm a fan of not going with links doing RFPs. We do our own RFP, and we have discussion with what we stay minimally with links as far as a north-south route. So that's my 2 cents worth. Commissioner Lockhart, let's try to wrap it up.
Well, I know that staff is looking for direction, and so I want to make sure that we're giving the county manager some consensus to move forward. One of the things that I agree that we need to move as fast as possible, and belaboring this is not going to benefit anyone, really. Is there a possibility of moving forward with the RFP while starting a type of pilot with Freebie? Can the two be done at the same time? Go ahead and start working with them on a pilot and put an RFP out on the street? Because I think once we start to see how it's utilized in maybe one of our more frequently utilized areas, we may learn a lot. One of the things James says, we've learned a lot, and we continue to learn what works and doesn't work. And we may wind up putting something in an RFP with an assumption that we want it to be built a certain way, but through the work of a pilot program, we may learn some different things to save time and get things moving more quickly. I just didn't know if that was a possibility, if staff recommended against it, what that would look like.
And that would be for us, right? We would run the pilot, right?
So the consensus I heard is we would like to do our own RFP process and moving forward, and let links do what they want to do, and then we can see what comes out of that.
My narrative falls into what the recommendation pretty much is, while they explore that, and just let the staff handle it at the staff level. Report back to us what their further recommendations are.
Okay, you lost me then, because I thought I...
Last slide. So my discussion was discussion with links, as well as RFP for the other.
No, this says to invite links to submit. It doesn't say coordinate with them.
Okay. That's a play on words. My expectation.
No, no, it's
totally
not. It's
different
very
process.
different. If we're doing if we're going with the recommendation, which as I see it is we're going to go out on our own and create an RFP, and Lynx is welcome to respond to that RFP, I was thinking that, my question was, going with the recommendation, and then while we are doing that RFP, would there be some rationale to starting a pilot program so that we're learning and not wasting time in that learning process?
Mr. Chairman, I think what you're trying to say is the last line, invite Lynx to submit a proposal amongst others.
Well, first of all, Lynx does not have a dedicated freebie type service. So if you're asking them to solicit, they have nothing to solicit in that realm.
NeighborLink.
They have NeighborLink.
NeighborLink is their microtransit.
Understood. And we have that service. And so they can have the ability to submit alongside. And all I'm saying is, I personally am not interested in keeping all of our eggs with Lynx. It's not cost effective.
I think we agree.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, with the recommendation that staff's given us.
Go ahead.
Does staff
Let me-
have further questions on that?
No, if you'd like it, just for my clarification, is that, or
Well, we got into a pilot program. I'm not there at the pilot
Yeah.
program section yet, but
So a couple things on the pilot program, and then if it would, maybe just clarifying where I think we're on the same page, but perhaps a little different vernacular. But the issue with a pilot program is obviously, can it be done? Yes, there's a bunch of things that can be done. When there's adjustments to the service, there's a time that it takes place to do it. They have to go through that whole process of posting and things like that. So there's potentially there's a start and stop, and how that lines up in the timeline could be problematic. Not to say not to do it, that's it. One reason as staff we're recommending an RFP is we weren't comfortable just kind of establishing a zone and saying, yep, this is it, this is utopia. There's many things that come before this board that staff has a very definitive opinion or what they believe is a solution on it. This one has so many variables that I think it's difficult, and they come into policy things. So that was one reason we didn't recommend one of those options, even though we spent a ton of time with Lynx trying to come up with things. It ultimately just came, we're not policymakers, but what I think I'm hearing is the communication with Lynx and their ability to bid and not bid. And I think there's two slides, and I apologize. I think I may have caused this confusion. If you go to the next steps, there's a thing in there that says continue conversations with regional transit entities about efficient service of the future. And then on the recommended action, there's about the provide. So I think there's some confusion on what my intent was in there. So this is the part I was hoping to clarify. What I mean by that is, the first bullet on the next steps is staff does not recommend that we remove ourselves from a regionalism approach. That there are ways to reduce a footprint in the traditional manner that we've had, but still keep in a regional model. And that's really what the first bullet is meaning, is we should look at scale that back. So we could go with an Arlington approach of having 2 or 3 stops and okay, you just get to a stop and you go through that. Or we could go to an approach like Commissioner Zembauer mentioned and say, okay, we'll keep a 1792 route or a 436 route. And these are things that, quite frankly, we'd like the proposers to look at. One of the things as staff that we would like to suggest for proposers, including Lynx, would be, all right, here's our ridership, here's what we have, suggest some things back, and then kind of set a framework of, okay, we would want a minimum of 3 points, and one that's on a north-south, one on an east, and one on a west. Maybe that's one thing. Or we want no more than whatever the basic number of fixed routes we were keeping on that, and we're amenable to any option in between. So that was what the intent was, bullet 1, is to continue that dialogue, make it more efficient, but at the same time, that's not excluding Lynx from bidding. That's working in conjunction with them as well as private providers. Hopefully that clarified some things, and I apologize for the confusion.
Which I'm fine with, and that's what my thought process was.
Mr. Chairman, if we're looking to try to build consensus, I think the next steps makes a lot, please go back.
Right.
I think the next steps makes a lot of sense. I think that those 4 bullets are what we're all kind of saying in one form or another, and I think what Christian just articulated. So I think that's where we should go.
Mr. Chairman.
Great.
The only thing I would add is that we need to be including the hospitals in the 7 cities.
Yeah.
I know it's not on that, but I want to make sure that it's on. Because I don't want people to say, well, it's not on there, we didn't agree to it. Yes,
And the
we
school,
did agree.
and community college.
And
I mean,
when I said school, I mean
several
all the schools.
Yeah, don't mean community college.
Commissioner Herr.
I still want to go back to the concept of a pilot at the same time we're going out to bid. I think if we're going to do that, I think there should be not a purchasing solicitation, but a request from all potential vendors to say, do you have any interest in piloting something? It's going to have to be for a date certain, and they're going to have to be willing to make that investment knowing that an RFP is going out. I think that will be self-limiting in and of itself. So I wouldn't do it with one vendor over the other, but I would do it as a general request to say, is there any interest in this? And then bring that back so that we know where that goes. The RFP process, I would tell you that my perspective on the setting up the parameters of what we want is not to do that. The worst responses to RFPs that ever happen in my industry is when somebody puts parameters in there that we have to work around. We can't make it efficient when parameters are put in there by non-experts, which we've all admitted we're not experts. So I think the parameters need to be general, that we want the population that needs to be served. They should be able to identify that. That we want speed, that we want 30 minutes or less, that we want connectivity to links, that we want all of, that's the type of parameters we need to put in there, not we need 4 stops and here's where we want them to be.
Correct. And to Commissioner Herr's point, I mean, they have their own modeling. It's all taken from existing stuff that already, I mean, Freeview's doing Miami, they're doing Coral Gables, they're doing Ventura, they're doing other places, and so are these other entities who have those metrics to be able to rely upon. It's going to be working in conjunction with those entities to tell us what the best service routes are and where the best area to be served is. So I think I have no desire to take what Link's numbers are and give it to a vendor and say, this is what you're going to bid on these routes. I mean, I think that's a waste of time.
I don't think that was the suggestion. I think it was giving some parameters to it. I do think it would be beneficial for us to establish what our budget is. And so this is hard work for this board, probably for Darren, but it would probably be a really good idea for us to put out a number that says if our current number with links, I'm going to make one up, is $15 million, and we want to spend 10, then we ought to put the thing out that says for $10 million, what is the best transportation we can get for our citizens with these minimum standards in this community? We would get some really cool responses if we do that. Otherwise, we're going to have an upend number that we're going to be 2 years out because we get stuff back that we can't afford.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of putting a number on the street and ask them to come in at that number. I'm a bigger fan of letting them tell us what works best and what has worked best in other locations and what the costs are associated with that. And if we want to expand that service, reduce that service, there should be a number that comes along with it. We can all have that discussion.
So is your thought that we're willing to spend more than we are with links?
I am not willing to spend more than links, and that's not the
There's our
question.
number.
Well, you don't have your answer yet. I mean, you're going to ask somebody to come in and say, look at this
Links
area.
today,
No,
what we
understood.
spend today.
Understood.
Well, that's the top
We're
end of the
spending
bar.
$14 million,
There you go, that's the top end.
and that's with $2 million offset being subsidized. So we got the numbers earlier, and you want to go back to those slides, the numbers earlier, with the FTA funding and the other grant money that could come in?
So there's, just make sure on this is the Arlington one, is that the one you were looking at? Or are you
Correct.
okay.
Something that's already exists, happening, taking place, understanding it's not a plug and plug here, but this is something that is real time, has happened, and what's occurring. Correct?
That's correct. These are numbers we got from Arlington. The one thing I just want to, in the sake of full disclosure, is the FDA 5307
Right.
funds, we would have to reach that designation as a
Correct.
recipient. Or
That's currently
otherwise-
going to the region. Understood.
correct.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
The thought could be, and there's a lot of great input here, waiting another meeting, or sometime in December and having staff bring us back an actual timeline with what, they can put some thought behind it instead of us just freewheeling up here and say, what is the best approach to do this? That may be the best avenue, and actually give us an outline of what they think we should be asking in an RFQ or an RFP, what we should be doing in the timeline, how we should be handling all of this, and let's put some thought behind it so that we can all digest it over the...
And that's why the next steps made so much sense.
Correct. I understand that, but that's what I would do.
I agree.
I think staff's already started those dialogues.
And I understand it, Mr. Chairman.
Arlington.
Let's just put it more together on a piece of paper for us, that's all.
So does everybody agree when we move forward with the next steps?
Yes.
Great, there you go. Fantastic.
Mr.
We still have the,
Mr.
sorry.
Chairman, I'm sorry. I was just going to say, do we now go back to 21?
Yes.
Okay, so I'll move approval of 21.
Second.
I have a question on number 21.
Motion second, further
I have a
discussion,
question
Commissioner
for the county manager. I'm sorry.
Delary?
Commissioner Lockhart.
Commissioner Delary.
We're agreeing to renew the contract for Lynx for the next year, or this year, which is just a little bit above $14 million. And I would imagine that if we do a pilot program or a program that comes in before this contract is up, that we would be adjusting our revenue, our cost of Lynx.
That is correct.
I just want to make sure that that's
Yeah.
clear.
Yes, and I just want to make sure I'm clear on what we were doing. So we're going to go with the next step slide that staff showed you. We're not doing anything with an RFP at this point. We're actually putting it together with a timeline, and we're bringing that back possibly at the next meeting to show you, what that would entail.
Absolutely.
Right. Is that?
But to answer
What?
I just want to answer my question first because it's...
Yes, no, you're correct.
It's the
Yes.
question that, the motion that's on the table. Am I
Yes.
correct by assuming that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Now we can go to your question.
Well, I don't want to get to finish that.
Is there any further discussion on the motion?
Well, in the county manager's attempt to clarify, I have a question. Why are we holding up putting together the RFP?
No, we could actually put that together. I thought this board wanted us to bring it back for you to look at.
Yes.
That's what I heard. That's why I just want to clarify.
But you're not waiting
No,
to put it
no,
together.
no, I'm sorry.
You're going to you're
Yes,
working diligently
yes,
on it, and you're
yes,
bringing it to us
correct.
by our December board
Correct,
meeting.
correct.
Okay, got it. A draft.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Seeing none, carries unanimous. Okay. Next item up is Utilities Master Plan. What's the flavor of the board? Do you want to go ahead and work through lunch, or do you want to take lunch and have them come do this after?
I'd like to take lunch if that's okay with the rest of them.
We got a little longer on that one than I anticipated. So you want to do this now, or do you want to do it this afternoon? We've got time this afternoon.
I'd rather do it this afternoon so I actually get into it.
Is that going to do anything for your?
No, in fact, they were notified that this could go at 1:30, get pushed to 1:30. If you all are willing to do it start it at 1:30, the Utilities Master Plan.
So be it. We'll return at 1:30. We'll be in recess till 1:30. Thank you all very much.